Hello and welcome, Inspired Podcast community. This is your new episode. My name is Caroline, and my today's guest is Clint Rusch, and I'm so happy that you are here. How are you doing today?
Caroline, it's great to be here. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you. And I would love to introduce you to the audience. Of course, you are an award winning leader, decorated combat veteran, and experienced executive. As former president and CEO of North Point Logistics, you led the company to become the fastest growing global logistics firm in the US. You have held leadership roles in various industries and you are a Lean Six Sigma black belt. You also served in the US Army and you have been recognized for your contributions with the Bronze Star Medal. Welcome to the Inspired Podcast, Clint Rusch.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
That's you. I hope you recognize yourself. And
Yeah,
I didn't.
it sounds interesting when I hear somebody say it. It's
I
for me,
think
it's just a bunch of stuff that I did. But yeah, absolutely.
it's
Thank
you,
you.
and I did not mix up the bios of my guests, so it all is well. And my first question is, how did your military experience shape your leadership style in the private sector, particularly in your role at North Point Logistics?
Yeah. So my experience in the military taught me a few things that I think helped in the private sector. And I think that people have this idea that when you get out of the military, you're inherently in a very command and control mentality about how to lead. And I think there's a time and a place for that. In a moment of crisis, that is the appropriate response. You have to have somebody who says, "Get behind me. We're going over there, and we're not having any dissent." Right now, it's about execution. Um, but that's a time and place thing, and that's a circumstantial thing. What the military really taught me, and what my time, especially in combat, taught me was that while that's important under some certain circumstances, there's also a necessity for collaborative problem solving, and there's a necessity to say, "Hey, look, this is something we're trying to solve, and we just don't know the answer. We haven't tackled this problem before. There's something new. This isn't a case of do A, then B, then C, then D. This is a case of here's a unique problem set. It's something we haven't thought about before, and what we really need to surround ourselves with aren't people who just can recite, here's what the book says, right? Do this, then this, then this, but rather people who can think in a very dynamic way and who can think in a very creative way to solve problems. And so where that, as I moved through my career, when I eventually got to lead NPL for a while, that was in the midst of the COVID crisis, and the way that the supply chains of the world were really, turned on their ear, and there wasn't a book, there wasn't a manual that said do A, then B, then C, then D, because it was a problem nobody had dealt with before. And so I was really fortunate to have people on my team who were creative problem solvers, who were the kind of people who would say, well, this might work. Let's give this a shot. Um, and so what the military gave me was two things. One was the ability to hear their suggestions and hear their ideas and be able to analyze them really in real time, right, and collectively. But the second, and I think this is the one that a lot of leaders stub their toe on, was the confidence to be able to say, it doesn't matter if it's my idea or not. It doesn't matter if it's my idea, or if it's the idea of somebody on my team. I'm secure enough in myself, and I'm confident enough in myself to be able to say, what matters is that the team wins, not that the team wins running my play. And so when you put those both together and you have an environment of complex problems, it actually becomes a lot easier to solve them, because you've got a great team oriented around how to solve the problem in a creative way. I don't think I could have done that if I hadn't had the experiences I had in uniform, and so was just an incredible opportunity for me to learn those things early in my career and bring them later on.
Wow, I understand. So when you were talking about it's about the higher purpose. It's not about, yeah, when you talk about whose idea was this, then the ego comes into play, but that is not the question. It's about focusing, I would say, on the solution, or from the solution, better
Yeah.
in terms of reverse engineering, of course, not on the problem. And you have a team around you that supports you. I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
because
And I think it's interesting. Go ahead. Sorry, I stepped on you there.
no, I just want to add, a leader has to be able to ask for help or to accept ideas. Yes.
100%. I think it's so interesting. We have to, as leaders, um, you have to almost fall in love with the problem, not the solution. But you can't focus on the problem, and that's a weird dichotomy to have. And what I mean by that is, when you fall in love with the solution and you say, "This is the thing that we're going to do," now you have a solution in search of problems. Now you say, "This is the thing. Let me find a way to reverse engineer this thing into the problem," instead of saying, "Here's the problem we're facing. Let's understand it. Let's pull it apart a little bit, and now let's craft a purpose-built solution to solve that problem." Right? And it's important to do it in the correct order there. And I think that one of the things that um, I've been fortunate to have is a team that is capable of looking at that problem in different ways. And when you look at the problem in different ways, you see different potential solutions. Those different potential solutions, a lot of them don't work in the aggregate. A lot of them, when you really say, okay, this solves this part of the problem, but at a grand scale, it doesn't work. Great, okay, but can it teach us something about what will? And so the real benefit of all of that is to be able to think about things in a micro and in a macro context really simultaneously. I learned how to do that in the military, and I learned how to do that in the toughest environment you possibly can. And so when I did it in a business context, and when I've done it in a business context, it's certainly an easier path. Doesn't mean it's easy, but it means it's easier. And I think that's the benefit.
Yes, absolutely. And I love what you said about order. You have to do it in the right order. And yeah, most of the people are not only in businesses, only in the day-to-day life, they are focused on the problem, and then they repeat the problem every day. And then, of course, there's no solution or no way out. It's the way of thinking that makes the change. And I also love how you pointed out the different perspectives, I would say. That reminds me also of putting different glasses on, looking through different glasses, or something like that. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the best analogy I've ever heard about it is that when you walk around something, it always looks different from different angles, right? If you look at a statue, or you look at an object, no matter where you stand in a circle around it, it will look different. And so if you only ever stay in one location, you lose the perspective of that thing. You don't understand the third dimension. You don't understand what it looks like from the other angles. And so whether it's you physically walking around it, right, or metaphorically, or whether it's you have people positioned around it who can see the problem differently, what matters the most is that you have a full accounting of what that looks like 360 degrees. And when you do that, you make better decisions. You have a better understanding. And so you're not solving your idea of what the problem is, you're solving the actual problem.
Wow. I'm speechless now because you expressed something. No, I can tell you it was a new idea or new word you gave me to describe the same thing. Because when you talk about, I use now the word using. Okay, when you use your team or you accept help, and there are entrepreneurs out there, they think they have to do all by their own, or they don't accept help, they don't ask for help. So when you have your team around that table, so to say, in that analogy, and they share their perspectives, right? Then you, in that way, oh, I now I think you multiply, or you multiply yourself, and you
Yeah,
accelerate the problem solving speed, or what is the word? Yeah, you know
that's
what I'm time, right? Yes.
yes. I had a boss early in my career. I said to him, we had been going to a lot of the same meetings, and I said to him at one point, like, "Hey, I'm not gonna invite you to this next meeting. I'm just gonna take it myself. Is that okay?" And And he said, yeah, Clint, that's the idea. The idea is that you go to the meeting and I don't. So then I can go to another meeting and we can solve two problems at once. And then we put a third person on the team and they go to a third meeting and then we can solve, wait for it, three problems at once. And I said, okay, I get it. Like, I understand it. He said, and then we put a fourth person on the team. I said, I get it. I understand. And we had a good laugh about it. But the point is, when you don't listen to that team, when you don't bring those perspectives to the table, to your point about multiplying, right? And I think that's a really great way to think about it, is multiplying. If you multiply all those numbers, but you don't include somebody, right? That changes that number to a zero. Well, my basic math tells me when you multiply, if you include a zero in there, you're going to get a zero on the outcome.
Yeah.
And so don't do that. Don't do that. Bring that perspective in and let that inform your decision making. Let that inform your thinking. It doesn't mean you say, hey, look, I'm hands off. You guys figure this out. No, not at all. A great leader plays a huge role in drawing those ideas out and synthesizing those ideas. But the idea that the concept that, as an entrepreneur or as a leader, you have to do it all yourself. It's so easy to fall into that trap. And it's so easy for that trap to become self-perpetuating. And okay, great. Now the business marches at the speed of one person. I mean, you better run really fast if you want to scale that business. Far better to say, let's all work together and do it collectively.
Oh, yes. I love that so much. So I was one of the entrepreneurs, I thought I can do the things best and no one can do it like I can do it. So there was not much growth in it. So I love what you shared because I'm learning too, of course. And my next question to you is, mm, how has your diverse career across sectors, from logistics to healthcare, informed your approach to executive leadership and operational efficiency?
It's a great question. I think there's two big things that it's created for me. The first one is it's given me an insight into the commonality across industries of customer demands and the specificity across industries with the way that the industries respond to those customer demands. So when you really think about it, we're all really trying to solve the same basic three problems. Okay, we want more of something, we want it faster, and we want it at a higher quality. And those are the three things, right? That's it. Now, if you take those three problems and you put them into a bunch of different industries, they show up differently. And when they show up differently in those industries, different industries respond in a different way. One thing that commonality has really it's shown me is if it doesn't work in one, it's probably not going to work in another. If you go to the doctor's office and the first thing they say is, and this is a pretty common thing, you go to check in and they go, here's a clipboard, fill out all this paperwork. No one in that environment is excited. No one says, boy, I can't wait to go back. This is a great welcome. Well, if you go to a hotel and you go to check in and they say, go to the kiosk and just type in all your information, it's the same exact response, right? We're in both cases, we're dealing with the same problem, which is an impersonal check-in process. And in both cases, we're dealing with the same outcome. Now, conversely, if you go to a different hotel, but the same industry, and the front desk person welcomes you in and says, it's great to have you here. We're so excited to have you here. We've got your reservation here. Let me take a look. Let me pull it up. Can I get your last name so we can find it? Pulls it up. Hey, we've got you in a room, with a king bed. Is that the right setup for you? They're engaging you in the process. Okay. Take that same thing and bring it over to the medical situation. Bring it over to that healthcare situation. Instead of the answer being, hey, you're here for your appointment, here's your clipboard. How about the answer is, we're so glad you're here today. Thank you for coming in. We have some information we need to get from you. Okay. And one of the easiest ways for us to do that is for you to just fill this out for us so that I don't have to go through all the questions with you. And you go, that's awesome. Thanks. And you sit down with a totally different mindset, right? That commonality of experience, that commonality of expectation is something that, working in a lot of different industries, consulting to a lot of different industries, it has become so stark for me. And I think that's one of the things that's really interesting is every company that I've talked to, every company that I've worked with, They all say, oh, we're different, we're unique, our customers are unique. No, they're not. They're not. They're the same people, right? The person who goes to shop at your grocery store, they also shop at Amazon. The person who waits in line, at your facility, they also wait in line at the DMV. Those are common experiences. And so if we start to say our customers are unique and they're not common, then we are closing our eyes to the expectations that they have created from other industries. So that's the first thing. The second thing that it showed me is each one of these industries, each one of these organizations, everybody seems to have cracked the nut a little bit differently. And what's so mind-boggling to me is how people become siloed and refuse to say that solution could work here. Now you look at that and it shows up in expectations. When you look on an airline app on your phone, you can see when you check if I check my golf clubs and if I'm on a flight, I can see when those golf clubs get put on the plane. I can see when they came off. I've got the timestamps, right, of all those things. Well, before Amazon did that with my packages that were getting shipped to my house, I had no expectation of it for my golf clubs. As soon as Amazon starts doing it, now I go, well, hang on a second. I want to know where my golf clubs are, because I know that you have scan points, right? I know you're scanning it off the plane. I know you're scanning it into the system, and I want that data transparency. So the commonality of expectation shows up in a very individualized way across industries. But what I think is again, it's stunning to me, is the way that people in a particular industry, because of the idea that they say our customers are unique, our situation is unique, they don't open their mind to look at other industries to solve their problems. Your problem's probably already been solved. It's just been solved 83% of it, and you got to turn it a little bit. Great, fine. That's what your team exists to do. That's what that problem-solving meeting exists. Hey guys, here's a potential solution. Can we take this and just tweak it a little and have it work for us? And the answer, 9 out of 10 times, is going to be yes. So I think that's what it really has given me, is commonality of customer expectation and uniqueness of solution. And those two things combined really can allow an organization to differentiate itself effectively.
Wow, thank you. This was an outstanding answer. I learned so much, and also what I learned is that you have to be outstanding, of course, and that when you look at other industries that you think they are not yours, but they set the standard because they all deal with the same, or they serve the same customers, right?
That's it.
I can say it politely. They don't deal with them. We serve the same customers in the end, and then you said Amazon set the standard with checking where not your luggage but your package is, and then you expect this. You talked about expectations as well, of course.
Yeah.
Then yeah, and then in the beginning when you talked about the hotel, not reservation but check-in, you said, and this is very important, to walk the customer through, or the patient in the medicine, in the medical office, or I don't know how you call it, then they participate in the process, and they feel that they are, I would say, co-creating the experience, one can
Yes.
say. And this I
Yes.
love very much as a takeaway as well, because it's so easy to say, take this form and fill out, and it's the old world, right? And now we are in a different era.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much. I learned so much. Yes, please.
I think your point about expectations being set outside of your industry, that's the most important thing to understand.
Mhm.
And this isn't something that's hard for, I think, we all understand it, right? The things that we experience, there's it's the expression that people have of, they're waiting in line and they go, "Hey, we put a man on the moon. Why can't we figure this out?" They're taking the expectation of something that has nothing to do with what you're doing here, and you're juxtaposing it to create that comparison. It's a natural human behavior. And I think as leaders, as entrepreneurs, as business leaders, we have to understand that our customers' expectations are largely informed by industries that are not our own. And it's important to recognize that and say, how do I meet those expectations? Well, how did that industry meet them? And what can I take from that and bring it to my industry and say, oh, I can tweak it a little bit and it changes the way the customer relationship happens. To your point, it allows a co-creation. It allows us to say you're a part of the solution, which validates that expectation, and it creates for the customer a shared objective.
Yes, I love that. It is because they recognize it when you implement this, and if it's not there, the process they are used to, then something is missing, and they will go to the companies they already offer it.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Couldn't agree with you more.
I love that. Thank you so much. Okay, let's say my last question is about your goals. Do you set goals for yourself? I assume, I expect you to to set goals and intentions. And what is one of your next projects?
Yeah. So I think that goals are one of those things that it's an interesting. I don't generally use the word goal. And the reason for that is that I think when we say, my goal is to do X, Y, and Z, we're giving ourselves somewhat of a permission to not meet it, right? Because we don't meet our goals. That happens. Our goal is to do this, and we fall a little bit short. And so I think when we use the word goal, it gives us permission to fall a little bit short. And so the way that I look at it is to say, here's the outcome that I'm looking for. Here's the long-term outcome that I'm looking for. And everything between here and there is a step on that journey. Everything. And so you backwards plan to get to that destination, and you say, if I want to get there, then I have to do this along the way. And now I don't have permission to fall short on those things. I have to accomplish them because those are the step to get to the thing I want to get to. And so if I'm not at the destination yet, great. I just know what my next step is. But those steps are non-negotiable. And so if I look at what, the next things hold for me, what the future holds for me, when I left the military, I didn't know anything about business. I knew a little bit from having grown up with a mother who was an entrepreneur and getting to see it, but I didn't know the language. I didn't know how to lead businesses. I just knew a little bit. And so I spent years developing that knowledge, those skills, those experiences, and eventually led some operational units, built and worked in quality, moved in consulting, and eventually had the opportunity to lead a business. And the next step then is to lead my own business. And great, that's the next step, right? Is to go out and buy something and lead that. And I'm on that journey. I'm on that path. And so I look at that and go, what are the next steps along the way? And once I hit that outcome of, I've got my own business that's mine and it's thriving and my team and we're all working together and that's wonderful. Well, then I look at what's the next hill to climb, what's the next mountain to scale. And then you just work backwards and say, okay, maybe it's to add a second business, right, to the portfolio. All right, well, then let's go through that process. What are the steps that need to happen to get there? And so to some extent, it's just a constant looking up to say, what's the peak that's a little bit higher, right? What's the peak that's a little bit higher? And yeah, I got to walk down from this peak to walk up that one. Fine. Okay, I'm fine with that. But those are just steps on that journey. And so for me, it's a matter of saying, I will get to the top of that peak and I'm going to hold the flag at the top of that peak. And between now and then, there are 10 things that have to happen or 8 things that have to happen or whatever it is. But if I haven't gotten to number 2, I just keep going until I get to number 2. And then when you hit number 2, you keep going until you get to number 3 and so on and so on and so on. And that inexorability, that ability to say it's just going to eventually happen, I think differentiates it from my goal is to eventually get there. Well, we can fall short of that, but I'm going to stand at the top of that mountain is a different thing. And so for me, the near term really is to own and operate a small business. And so I'm in the process of, as I mentioned, of purchasing something. And I'm really excited about that. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's going to come once that happens, right? I'm going to get to the top of that purchase peak and I'm going to look and go, oh, look, there's another peak. Well, let's get after that. And so it's one thing after another.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. I understand now. And I heard it once. Someone said when you or once you climb a mountain, it becomes the plane for the next mountain or something. That's a thing. I don't
That's
know.
it.
And it's very encouraging what you share, to never give up, being persistent, pursuing your, now I say, goals, maybe your purpose as well, your purpose, your calling in life. What is this? We have different words for that, of course. So thank you, thank you, thank you for our interview. I have one last thing. It is, yeah, of course, now it's time for your final thoughts to the audience. And please let us know where we can find you, where we can connect. Yes.
Yeah. So, final thoughts. I would say that I believe fervently that the secret to life is very simple. It's go first, go positive, and don't quit. And if you do those three things, if you step forward first, if you stay positive and you just don't quit, you climb every mountain you come in contact with. It doesn't mean every day is sunshine and rainbows. There's always unpleasant days. There's always unpleasant experiences. But you just go first, go positive, and don't quit, and life gets a lot simpler from there. Um, that mantra has really helped me with my kids, with my job, with my health, with my financial life, with my fixing stuff on my house, with reseeding the grass in the backyard that won't stay growing because of the stinking shade. I'm gonna get that figured out. But the point is, right? You go first, go positive, don't quit. If people want to reach me, the best way to do it is clintrusch.com. It's CLINTRUSCH.com. There you can connect with me. You can find me on podcasts. You can see some of what I believe and some of my thoughts there, and we can stay in touch that way. But that's the best way to get in touch with me.
Oh, thank you so much. It was enlightened and I learned so much. I have to re-listen to this episode. Of course, there were so many nuggets in it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please reach out to Clint. He has information not many people have, and he's willing to share with us.
Thank you,
Thank
Caroline.
you. And see you in the next episode.